right, welcome to the third review of the evening. Up this time is Save Me, Mr. Tako Definitive Edition.
Or as they say in Japanese, Tasukete Tako-san,
Quite,
which is help me, Mr. Octopus.
indeed. So I guess a bit of backstory on this game first. The Definitive Edition is because this is the second release of this game. Um, Back when it was first published, apparently this game had some noticeable bugs and problems. Um, but it had the misfortune of being a game published by um, now disgraced indie publisher Nicholas. And you don't. I am very pleased to say that because I've known Nicholas was awful for a long time, more than most. But that's neither here nor there. Like, apparently, this one, it was one of their more benign fights. They just didn't want to pay for the updates. Um, So limited run games swooped in, at least for the Switch version, and put the work in, as it were. And I assume the original developer as well, Christopher Galate. Sorry. Um,
Christophe Galati, probably. I don't know.
I mean
Looks
that
it looks it looks French or Italian or something.
Galati sounds Italian to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like anyway, so this game came out back in May under this revised title, with some good, some bad, mostly good. The good is that it got all the problems fixed. Um, since it's limited run games, it got a Switch physical edition. Keep in mind, it is a limited run game, so availability is probably an issue. Um, and it came out in May, so they're probably already sold out of their stock. Like,
It
anyway.
also has some actual other changes. The original one had some difficulty levels that mostly pertain to how many lives you have before you game over. The definitive edition has 3 difficulty settings that are more significantly different than those were.
Yeah. And the biggest issue is because a different publisher picked this up, there was no free upgrade. You had to rebuy it.
Yeah, they also just removed the original one from the
That's
store.
Well, yeah, that's pretty normal when another publisher picks a thing up.
No, like a while ago.
Yeah, which once again fits into the scumminess that Nicholas did. But once again, this is not about them. This is about this version of the game. And the backstory is dive into a great adventure in the Game Boy era. Tako will travel the world, explore mysterious dungeons, and fight tenacious bosses on his quest to end the war between the Octopus Kingdom and the human realm. Will you help this brave octopus to spread his message of tolerance and unity by beating everyone up? That last part was me adding flavor. Because
you really are the only one arguing for tolerance and unity. Because so the backstory of this is that octopi used to rule the world, but since the rise of humans, octopuses have been forced down to live in only a small area in the ocean. But now they have a new ruler, and Octopus and Tako's big brother Bako is one of their leaders, and they are literally waging a war of extermination against humanity. But Tako doesn't want to do that.
And once again, we have another visitation to the more rarefied realms of retro gaming. That is the Game Boy. And I'll tell you what, this looks more like a proper Game Boy game than Dogger Eye did.
Like, yeah, the color and the visual style is very. Unfortunately, there are some annoying, not quite pixel perfect stuff on the Switch version, which might just be a screen dimensions thing. I don't know. But
It
things like
could.
the thin black borders around the numbers for your lives and gems
Hmm.
are sometimes are not quite pixel perfect, and that bugs me a little. But again, it's still overall very good. It basically acts as if you're playing it on a Game Boy Color or Super Game Boy by default, namely that it switches to different palettes for different areas, but there's also in settings you can change pretty much any of the default ones to be the one that it always is.
Yeah, I'm like, it's got the puke green screen if you want that.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'll
And
be honest.
that is the default in some areas, I think mostly beachy areas.
Like, I get why it's included because that was the actual color of the Game Boy screen, but nobody liked it. Nobody liked that puke green monstrosity. We tolerated it because Game Gear sucked up all the battery power.
It's not bad for rendering like forests or beaches though.
Hmm. Like, um, and how's the music on this? Because I
Uh
remember the
Very
last one.
appropriate, appropriately Game Boyish.
Mhm. They're not
Pretty
annoying like
pretty
Dragon Ball.
yeah, it's chiptune, it's pretty catchy. I enjoyed it's not the most memorable thing, but it's pretty enjoyable actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're an octopus. You have the ability to spit ink. You have the
Uh-huh.
ability to jump, which presumably all octopuses have. They do not all have the ability to spit ink.
Which is weird.
Well, maybe the other ones can just kind of emit it as clouds rather than as like bullets that go halfway across the screen or more and stun enemies.
Okay.
Which when you hit them, it's like the Metroid Ice Beam. It functions as. I don't think you can actually kill any enemies in this game permanently, at least aside from bosses. Um, when they get ink on them, enemies stay still in place for a while, and you can use them as platforms and stuff, which is very helpful. You also collect a variety of hats throughout the game. There are 50 in total to collect. You get them from all kinds of things. Some are just lying out there. Some you get from NPCs. Some you get from doing side quests for certain NPCs. Not all of them are required, but for completion, you can get them. And many of them change your attacks. Like there's one, the first one you get gives you, well, the first one you get gives you an extra hit, because I'll return to the difficulty things shortly. The second one replaces your second functional one replaces your ink blob with an arrow that goes further and travels faster, I think. And the third one gives you like a bouncing ball attack, which can be very powerful if you get the aiming right. Because how like the arc it bounces in depends on how you're traveling and stuff. Also, you have the ability to look up and down. This is pretty valuable because there are times when you will be making jumps that would otherwise be blind and potentially suicidal. But if you look down, you can always see if there's something safe to jump to. And if you look up, you can see if there's anything secret to go up. So the difficulty modes in this game. Classic mode is based on, I think, the original. I don't know which of the three different difficulties of the original it's based on. It's the hardest difficulty. You have a maximum of 9 lives and you die in one hit. You get, I think, a special bonus in the ending if you complete every stage on Classic. There's I forget what it's called, the normal difficulty. You still die in one hit, but you like start with 10 lives and don't have a life cap. And there's a lot of places where you can get more lives, so that the biggest thing there is that when you die, you will go back to the beginning of the area or the last checkpoint. The checkpoints also let you swap hats or get a hat from all of the hats you've gotten. And then there's the third difficulty, which is the one for people who who are trying to play the game for the story, which the game actually has a story that's worth playing for. I'm kind of invested in this a little bit now, even though I've only in like the second area you get to once you go on land. And in that difficulty, you have 3 hits normally before you die. If you have a hat, in both difficulties, the hat is an extra hit point. I think and the heart hat is an extra hit point on top of that, the hat hit point, I think. But yeah, so ultimately you have a decent number of hit points. And when you have a hat and you get hit, you lose the hat. And you have to go to a checkpoint or a hat room to get it back. So yeah, not going to go too much into the story. Mechanics-wise, some of the controls are a little bit loose and floaty, and it's not because you're underwater, because it's the same when you're on land. You have a little bit of a get-up pull if you hit the edge of a platform near the top, but I found that a little bit hard to do on purpose. But it's for if you miss slightly. That and the fact that enemies move fairly fast, and some of the enemies that turn around look fairly similar to the ones that go straight, are the main reasons why I kind of recommend playing in 3-heart mode, at least your first time through. Gameplay is mostly stage-based in a Kirby-ish way, in that there are overworld screens that are platforming areas that you can walk freely around on, and there are also a few like towns or buildings or whatever that you can go into that are non-combat. But then there are doors to stages, and if you go into a stage and you beat the stage, the next stage door appears. And then when you've beaten one overworld area, you unlock another one. But it's not purely linear, because there are some things where, like, you need to do you get an item, get a hat or something from someone in a later stage, and have to bring it back to someone in an earlier stage. So that's interesting. And some of the stages are like just on the way to a place, or like they're a non-combat place that you might have to actually, or a town that you might still have to actually do some fighting in. So do you guys have any other questions? I'm trying to get my thoughts in order. I'm still a little frazzled from my weekend.
Not anything I haven't already asked.
I think I'm good.
I'm good.
So yeah, overall, I think this is a pretty good game. It could be improved slightly by having slightly sharper controls.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's also a button that lets you switch the hat you have on to one you have in storage, a la Super Mario World. Although it doesn't fall down from the screen, it just kind of appears in a bubble above you. And if you have a hat on, and if you don't have one in return, it'll let you get rid of the hat you currently have, in case you ever need to not have it for some reason. Oh, and all of your abilities are fueled by your ink. You have an ink meter that goes down. You're not going to have to worry about this much unless you're using a hat that has a very powerful attack, or if you're firing all willy-nilly. Normally you don't need to worry about it. But there are blobs of ink that you can pick up throughout stages that refill it. The icon for extra lives is a feather for reasons I don't understand yet. And the gems, I believe, are mostly to give you an extra life when you get, I think, 100 of them. But a lot of the time you find them in 5s or 10s. Yeah. So overall, I think I recommend this pretty highly, actually. What's the damage price-wise?
On the Switch version and the PC version, they're both $15. Once again, right now it's on sale on Steam for 20% off, $11.99. The Steam version does have the soundtrack available for $4.99, and it's got the bundle thing going on there for $20.98.
So for $11 or whatever, this is a very good deal. For 15, I actually still think that's reasonable because this is a game that actually has some depth to it and a story.
Right.
Even if it's not I don't think it's amazingly long, but it's got enough to it that I think it might be worth that.
I mean, there are certain cuts of these kinds of games. Just look at this week to see the difference between this and something like Violin or One Escape.
Oh, and also it does have modes where you can go from widescreen, regular or non-widescreen proportions with sidebars, widescreen proportions, but I think it's supposed to be smaller or closer to pixel perfect, and then narrow screen but picture perfect. And for the ones that are not full screen, it has Super Game Boy style borders, and some of the art on those is super cute. You can see some of them in the Steam slideshow.
Mm-hmm.
And some areas of the game have kind of garish color combinations, like fairly bright yellow and green, or red and blue, or red and green. So if you don't like bright colors, I recommend sometimes you'll need to select it. Oh, another thing I didn't say about the difficulty. There's an area in-game where you can change the difficulty at any time. Like, not during a stage, but you can, like, leave a stage, and once you've gotten, like, halfway through the first world, you can just go and say, I didn't like playing on one-hit kill mode, I'm going to change to 3 hit points mode. Or, I think 3 hit points mode is too easy, I'm going to play on one-hit kill mode. Or, I'm going to see if I can beat the game and beat every stage in classic mode after I've already gone through a lot of things, because I know how to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good way of doing difficulty selection. And I think that's all I got.
All right, then. So that'll about do it for Mr. Tako here. Be sure to tune in after the break, as Twilight will be covering Beasts of Maravella Island.